that China created a strategy, pursued it, and tried on its own to decrease its own dependencies on the rest of the world, and has been remarkably successful. And that in EVs and batteries and critical materials, China has an extraordinary stranglehold, if you will, upwards of 80 and 90% market share that now the United States and even Europe are trying to catch up with.
欢迎来到胤蓝智库。如果让西方无比焦虑的中国新能源霸权，初衷根本不是为了霸权，而是仅仅为了活下去。如果美国妄图垄断的人工智能一旦得逞，带来的将是全人类的主权灾难。当下，中美博弈已进入科技剥离的深水区，西方政客正指责中国在电动车和电池领域搞武器化供应链，同时华盛顿正史无前例的芯片禁令，试图把中国死死地按在 AI 革命的门外。在这样一个充满歧义的节点，今天的对话提供了一个极其清醒的局外人视角。在这段高能访谈中，嘉宾层层拨开了西方的叙事谬论。2012年，中国重注新能源是为了破解原油进口受制于人的生死困局。你不能因为别人战略长远且获得了成功，你就将其污名化为武器。在 AI 领域，嘉宾更是发出了警告：美国试图将 AI 的私有化，是对全球主权的威胁。AI 必须开源共享。中国庞大的顶级人才库注定了美国的围堵是徒劳的。最后，他打破了西方战争的狂想，极其严肃地指出了中美和平的必然性。为什么说传统的地缘挟制战略在复杂的科技革命面前已经彻底失效？让我们摒弃程序，用最纯粹的逻辑来审视这场决定未来50年的深度对话。请看正片。
So, to some degree, is China, and is the situation a victim of China's success at being so good at being able to strategically target industries it wanted to dominate and to be in? And now that's created a fear that that free trade system just didn't work out right in terms of balance.
Well, allow me to put EV car industry in historical perspective. Around 2012, when China decided to really put all the resources in developing this new sector, at that time, it was not certain at all that electric vehicle industry will be a splashing success, because at that time, lots of uncertainties in terms of the technologies, in terms of the supply chain.
Well, I remember I drove one of the first BYD vehicles in like 1997.
Really? Okay.
It was one of the test sites, and I knew it was going to be big.
Well, you are a visionary. You were a visionary then, and hopefully you will remain very optimistic about this industry. But China really took a big bet. Why? Because China wants to do the right thing to mitigate the impact of the climate change and the CO2 emission, etc. China wants to cut down its dependence on imported oil, crude oil. That's the driver for China's exploration of this EV car revolution. And China came up with an overarching view about how this industry should be done and what should be the prospect and how the supply chain should be structured or restructured. So you can say China has the vision and has the wisdom and has the courage to place such a big bet on the EV car industry, which in China's belief will really reduce the dependence on fossil fuel, which is what China really cares about. Now China turns out to be right. Other countries placed similar bets. For example, Japan placed a big bet on hydrogen car, which didn't materialize. So you cannot blame China for being visionary as well as very wise in placing the bet. And now China's production of EV cars already succeeded China's production of fossil fuel cars. And China's goal is to push the EV car production up to about 100% of all the vehicles produced in China.
Let me ask you a big question, Victor, and I ask it of many military leaders, foreign policy leaders, and political leaders in the United States. Why does it matter so deeply who wins the AI race?
Well, I think AI revolution is not only with us, it is going to shape and change everything we do as individuals, as families, as cultures, as civilizations, you name it. And I think several things stand out very sharply to me. First of all, AI is not American intelligence. Most people don't know that or don't want to figure that out. Secondly,
What do you mean by that?
well, I think the way the Americans are building up their AI dominance is kind of in the belief that they should turn AI into American intelligence, which is not true. Secondly, for any country to really achieve AI dominance will be a recipe of great disaster for humankind. Because
Even China?
for even China, just imagine any country building up AI dominance, what will it do? It probably wants to dictate to all the other countries. And that will really change the way we understand about sovereignty and the independent rights of nations, for example. Therefore, I think from the Chinese perspective, first of all, AI is not American intelligence. Secondly, AI should be open sourced rather than closed sourced. Therefore, AI should be developed in such a way that all countries should have a chance to participate. No AI dominance should be allowed. And then AI should not be hugely expensive, and the threshold should be lower and lower rather than higher and higher. And that is the way China is developing its AI. And I truly believe in a matter of 3 or 5 years to come, mankind should know very well the megatrend in the AI, which will be open sourced. Right. And I urge the American friends to really abandon the closed sourced way of developing AI. I think China and the United States are in the top league in terms of pushing the edge of the envelope as far as AI is concerned. And neither country is way ahead of the other country by any measurable means. And I think Mr. Jensen Huang of NVIDIA is probably right. If China's behind the United States, it's probably just by an iota, nanosecond behind the United States. And the fact that he keeps saying that top AI professionals are more than 50% Chinese from everywhere, mainland China, Taiwan, Malaysia, the United States, etc., does have a profound meaning. That is, the mind of the Chinese people using Chinese characters for thousands of years probably are better trained and better equipped to understand AI in the abstract sense of the word. And then the fact that China is producing about 3 million engineers of all kinds every year, putting them into this large pool of talents in China, many of whom are well trained for the AI revolution, means that if any country wants to push China down in terms of the AI revolution, probably they will fail. Working with China is the better way.
Let me change gears here and ask you about some foreign policy and national security issues. So in Washington, the national security strategy of the Trump administration was released as a report. China is mentioned 21 times in that document. Europe is mentioned a lot more as a concern point. And I was surprised, to be honest, given the level of hyperventilation in America about China, the China challenge, and what people call the defining challenge for the United States in this era is China, but how level-headed the tone was with China, that it was not the end of the world, that they were not wrapped up believing that a war with China would ensue in 2027 over Taiwan. So I'm just interested in your take on how you read the National Security Strategy document, and were you as surprised as I was?
No, not at all. I have the English version as well as the Chinese version of the National Strategy.
Are they similar?
I think comparing the two versions, they are very close to each other. Okay. I think President Trump and his government made the right decision to avoid what Professor Paul Kennedy of Yale History Department said in his book, The Rise and Fall of Great Power: overreach. I think the United States has been overreaching for decades and probably has reached a point where it realizes that it does not have infinite resources to continue to practice overreach. And eventually you need to pull back.
You see overreach as encircling China, as, a string of pearls, right? Containing China?
Overreaching in many senses of the word, for example, try to police the whole world, try to launch one war after another to achieve its strategic goal, which eventually is not sustainable by any stretch of the imagination. And try to be more realistic and pragmatic, and also try to, for example, defend free trade, defend peace rather than using war as the first priority, should probably better serve the fundamental interest of the American people. Now, between China and the United States, I firmly believe in what I call the inevitability of peace between China and the United States, which is a kind of
the inevitability of peace.
Inevitability of peace between China and the United States, meaning whether you like it or not, whether you like China or hate China, or dislike China, you cannot use war to achieve your goal. Eventually, you need to come to terms with China as a megatrend and solve whatever problems there are, which are plenty, in peaceful means, through diplomacy, negotiation, for example, to avoid war rather than embracing war. Because I think the inevitability of peace is kind of a rebuke of the destined for war scenario coming up by Professor Graham Allison of Harvard.
Sure.
If that theory, the Thucydides trap theory, is applied to China and the United States, why? Let me get 1 minute of your time. Because Professor Graham Allison very artfully analyzed many cases of war and came up with this excellent theory of Thucydides' trap. But he forgot to tell mankind that all the cases of war he analyzed so carefully were conventional wars. But if you want to apply the theory derived therefrom to China and the United States, two very large nuclear power states, something must be wrong. So I came up with this inevitability of peace theory, because I truly believe war should be absolutely avoided between China and the United States, because if you instigate a war between China and the United States in conventional war terms, it will soon get out of control and escalate from conventional war into non-conventional war. And that probably will spell the doom for mankind, and it will be Armageddon in a sense. So I talk about inevitability of peace to anyone.
欢迎回到解说现场。这场对话的背后，其实隐藏着中美在国家安全上的根本分歧。西方为何对中国新能源感到恐惧？因为在海权思维中，掌握资源就是掐人的脖子。他们忽视了中国底层的匮乏感。中国在新能源领域的狂飙突进，本质上是为了对冲马六甲困局的系统性自救。西方习惯用零和博弈揣测中国，把防御误读为进攻，这就是今天贸易摩擦的根源。再看 AI， 这场访谈戳破了华盛顿试图把 AI 打造成维系单极霸权工具的图谋，而中国主张的开源共享恰恰是在用多极化来消解霸权。连英伟达 CEO 黄仁勋都在警告，封锁只会逼迫中国建立起独立的技术生态。当全球过半的顶级 AI 人才都有华人的背景，美国这种冷战式的挟制网不仅傲慢，而且彻底的不切实际。但这篇访谈最沉重的一环是关于和平必然性的论断。在两个核大国高度交织的经济体系下，任何热战都会迅速的失控，导向互相毁灭。修昔底德陷阱并非不可逾越，前提是守住大国必须直面现实，试图压制14亿人的现代化进程，在物理和数学上是根本不可持续的。你们认为美国国内的政治精英有足够的历史智慧去和平接受一个多极事件吗？欢迎在评论区留下你的深度思考，我们下期见。